Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Michelle Gibbs, and I am passionate about helping scholarly mamas like you navigate your journeys with purpose so you can achieve your life and academic goals without sacrificing what matters. The reality is that scholarly mama life is multidimensional. We're scholars, yes, but we're also mothers, wives, and so much more with whole lives outside of academia. So how do we successfully navigate all this? Well, first, we need the space to embrace this unique blend. Only then can we begin the important work of becoming purposefully whole. And part of my own purposeful work is to create a space for us as scholarly mamas to grow, to reflect, and to become everything that we were meant to be. So, mama, are you in? Fabulous. Let's begin. These are our journeys of becoming. So what do you do when you've fallen out of love with your PhD? Hey mamas, thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome back to the podcast. In today's episode, as you might have guessed, I want to talk about what to do when you fall out of love with your PhD. Now, we all know that a PhD journey, pursuing a PhD, especially as a mama, is a monumental undertaking, one that demands unwavering dedication, intellectual prowess, and relentless passion. However, for many PhD mamas, this path can be such a complex juggling act, intertwining the pursuit of academic excellence with the responsibilities of motherhood. And in the midst of these intricacies, there comes a time when the fire that once fueled your research starts to dim. It really does. It starts to dwindle and dim. And you may find yourself grappling with a sense of disconnection, disillusionment, overwhelm, or even a lack of inspiration for your academic pursuits. And especially at this time of year, winding down to the end of the year, and, everyone's reflecting on, did I manage to achieve all the things I wanted to achieve in my PhD in this year? And also thinking about planning for the holidays, but also thinking about, okay, so when I come back to this in January, what do I want to accomplish next year? What goals do I have, both academic and personal, for the new year? And I think that the difficulty with that is, on one hand, you're looking forward to this period of rest and relaxation over the holidays. But on the other hand, you're dreading the return in the new year. You're dreading having to come back to this PhD, which perhaps in some cases may be at a point where you are not feeling it anymore. You're just not feeling that motivation to continue. And I think that this is a really critical point of reflection for us as scholarly mamas to think about, what can we do when we've fallen out of love with our PhD? Because, when we started this journey, we were enthusiastic, we were motivated, we were looking forward to all the things that we could achieve in this time and through this journey. And now reflecting that, that motivation is beginning to dwindle. So if you are navigating this challenging terrain, know that you're not alone. In this episode, we will explore constructive ways to reignite your passion and your research as a scholarly mama. And so before we get into the nitty-gritty of this episode, I just want to tell you, I have been in this position so many times. So many times I have felt like giving up on my PhD. It's been, for me, as you know, it was a very long journey. And so there were plenty of opportunities for me to feel like, why am I doing this? There's so many other things I could be doing. Why am I putting myself through this? And so many times I felt like I am no longer in love with this PhD. I don't want any part of it. Why am I doing this? I've fallen out of love with my PhD. And so the things that I talk about in this episode come from a place of experience. They come from a place of relatability. They come from a place of authenticity, because I've been here so many times. And as you know, the story ended quite well and I did get to the end of my PhD, but it wasn't without me having to take intentional action, really understand, my thought processes, understanding what was really the root of the problem for me. And so one of the things that I was having a conversation recently with my husband about was what it felt like to fall out of love with my PhD. And, we were talking about my journey of combining my PhD with motherhood. And I realized that in combining those two lived experiences of navigating a PhD journey and motherhood actually really helped me to successfully complete my PhD journey. Having those maternity breaks in between my PhD, I had 2 maternity breaks in between my PhD, and I also interrupted my PhD for a short time at the onset of the COVID pandemic. And so I've had 3 substantial breaks. Each of my maternity leaves were a year each. And the COVID interruption was about 7 months. So I had quite significant interruptions throughout my PhD journey. And one might look at that and think, wow, so many interruptions, that must have been really hard for you. But when I look back on it, I think, well, that was what saved my PhD. That is what allowed me to get through my PhD. So the interruptions and the maternity breaks and all of that actually allowed me to recharge my batteries, to kind of recenter myself and remember why I was doing this. And so I don't think, in all honesty, that I would have been able to sustain the energy and motivation if I hadn't had those breaks. And so for me, those breaks were actually an opportunity to kind of just step away for a little bit, recharge myself, recenter myself, decide what I actually wanted to do and why I actually wanted to do it, and remembering those reasons. And that allowed me to come back to my PhD. It was hard. Trust me, it was hard. I'll talk about that as we go along in this episode. But it allowed me to keep going despite the challenges, to keep going despite falling out of love with my PhD. So what should you do when you've fallen out of love with your PhD? So here are some tips from my experience. Of course, take what applies, take what is helpful, and leave what's not helpful. This is not advice. This is just sharing my experience. Okay, so the first thing is to acknowledge your feelings. The first step in navigating a dwindling passion for your PhD journey is acknowledging and accepting your emotions. Feeling disconnected or disenchanted with your research is a common experience, but understanding that it's okay to feel this way and that it doesn't diminish your capabilities or your commitment or your dedication is really, really important. So acknowledging those feelings. When I fell out of love with my PhD, I think the hardest part for me was that point right before returning to the PhD after maternity leave. Because at that point, you're into a routine with your baby, you're really enjoying that time together. Bonding is, at its peak, and you're just simply enjoying those early moments. And I think, yes, it was an opportunity to recharge, but after the recharge is always the hardest bit, where you think, okay, so I've got to go back to this now. I'm actually literally leaving my child in the care of someone else to return to this PhD that was causing me so much stress before. And, that's hard to kind of justify in your mind. But also, because you've had that break, because you've been able to remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing, because you were able to take your thoughts elsewhere for an extended period, it then gives you you don't feel as overwhelmed, you don't feel as worn down. You don't feel as burnt out. You feel refreshed. You feel, okay, now is a good time to have some adult conversation during the day. Now I can kind of interact with my colleagues or, interact with my research participants or whatever, or get stuck into some analysis or get stuck into some thesis writing or whatever stage you're at. But being able to rekindle that passion, coming back to something that you worked on, that you've created, that's been, for lack of a better word, been a baby to you as well for how many ever years. And so for me, I think, acknowledging that this was hard, this was going to be a slump, a hurdle to get over, and owning that and thinking, I'm not going to pretend that this is going to be easy. I'm not going to pretend that it's normal and natural for me to want to just kind of run as far away as possible from, my daily routine and looking after my kids. I'm not going to deny the emotional impact of this. I'm not going to deny that. I'm going to call that out. But then I'm going to remind myself that this is something that I wanted to pursue. This is something that I was doing for me. And I deserved to have the opportunity. I deserved to have the opportunity to come back to something that was mine. And so even though I'd fallen out of love with my PhD, just remembering that this was a personal goal I set for myself and accepting that it was okay to kind of dip in and out of my motivation, but that this was something I deserved and this was something that I wanted to continue pursuing. And so, acknowledging those feelings is actually really, really important as a first step. Before I continue with the episode, I just wanted to insert this bit because as I was recording this episode, my toddler son said he wanted to have his own podcast. And so I gave him a few moments to talk to the mic, and this is what he said. You don't want to miss it. I'll come back to the podcast after his little cameo.
I love my podcast. I'm happy. I love you, Mummy.
Isn't he simply adorable? What can I say? This is mum life, right? Anyway, thank you, my son. Now back to the episode. So this next step for me was reflecting on the source of that feeling, that falling out of love feeling, reflecting on the source of that. So taking a moment to reflect on the underlying reasons for that diminishing passion. Were there external pressures that, were contributing to this? Were there personal challenges? We all know what maternity leave is like. People think it's this wonderful, glamorous time being home with your baby. But we all know that there's so much sleep deprivation. There's so much healing and recovery that you're going through. And so it's not necessarily this kind of bed of roses. And if you're like me, you have other kids to worry about. You're literally dealing with this new baby, breastfeeding, the challenges of all of that, the sleep deprivation, the emotional hormonal changes. But then you've also still got to be present for your other kids. You've still got to take them to school, to pick them up, all of that. So that's the reality of it, right? So reflecting on the source, were there personal challenges that were contributing to this falling out of love? Or maybe there was a misalignment with the research topic that was contributing to this feeling. Whatever that is for you, identifying the root cause can offer some clarity of the next steps. So for me, I realized that I had so much self-imposed pressure to be the perfect PhD student, produce a perfect PhD, and also be a perfect mama for my kids. And I had to kind of own that. I had to kind of acknowledge that and challenge that and then change that. And that came with acceptance that I am not perfect. I don't have to produce a perfect PhD. I don't have to produce a perfect thesis. I don't need to be a perfect mama. I am human. I am human. And I am juggling a lot. And that's not easy, right? And so giving myself that grace to be imperfect and to accept that imperfection is actually a good thing. It allows me to learn. It allows me to grow. And that was part of this falling out of love because there was too much pressure. And some of it was self-imposed. Because when you look at it, nobody expected me to produce a perfect PhD. Maybe some people did. I don't know. But a lot of that was in my mind. A lot of that was me wanting to be that perfect everything. And so challenging that, realizing that it's okay to fail in some things. It's okay to have days where things, don't go to plan, and accepting that this is not meant to be a perfect journey, that this could be a purposeful journey if I want it to be. I will talk a lot more about that inside of Scholarly Mamas, which opens on the 1st of January 2024. So make sure you hop on the wait list today so you don't miss out on all of the inside scoop. So the next thing that I did, the third thing I did when I fell out of love with my own PhD, was to embrace self-compassion. As a mama doing a PhD, the expectations and demands placed upon you are manifold. So why not embrace self-compassion? You can do this by acknowledging the multifaceted nature of your life. Give yourself permission to prioritize self-care without guilt. It's crucial for your well-being and ultimately your academic journey too. And so this is where I say, real life is multidimensional. We are doing PhDs. Yes, we're scholars, right? But we're also mamas. We're also wives or partners. We are also navigating other challenges, perhaps caring for elderly parents or what have you. We are multi-dimensional. And this idea that we need to just do our PhDs and nothing else and just put every bit of energy we've got every hour of the day into that is not realistic. It's not realistic. And although sometimes it's not said, sadly, it's that kind of unspoken rule of success that you're just going to work as hard as you possibly can, put everything into it. Because after all, you want to be a really good academic, right? Doesn't matter if you kind of sacrifice the things that really matter, does it? Actually, remembering, Mama, that you also wear other hats and you can't be perfect in all these things. So accepting, embracing your self-love journey is also a part of this, and embracing that self-compassion and recognizing that there is, there's more to life than just this PhD. I had to get really, really real with myself about what mattered to me when I fell out of love with my PhD. I had to get real with myself and really be quite explicit with what really mattered to me. What was I on this journey for? How could I navigate this journey in a way that was conducive to me being present for my family, my kids, and other things that were important to me? How can I do that? How can I turn this, what felt like an immense struggle into purposeful journeys of becoming? It all began with acknowledging what really mattered to me. What were my priorities? I had to get really clear on that. And by doing that, it allowed me to set personal boundaries, to really not just set them, but enforce them and say, I am going to prioritize my self-care journey as well. I am going to prioritize what really matters to me and not make excuses, not apologize for that, for wanting to blend my personal and academic priorities. So the next thing you could do if you've fallen out of love with your PhD is to seek new perspectives. Exploring new perspectives can breathe fresh life into your research. Engage with diverse scholarly works, attend conferences, or collaborate with peers. Sometimes a change in approach or exposure can allow you to see and appreciate different viewpoints and perspectives. And that can reignite your passion. So connecting with others doing PhDs in other areas or doing PhDs in related areas even, but who you may not necessarily connect with normally, allows you to refresh your perspective and challenge your own thoughts that you're the only one in this boat. So when you connect with other people, you kind of realize, hang on a minute, they're having the same experience. That mama over there knows exactly what I'm going through. I'm not alone on this journey. This is the benefit of joining Scholarly Mamas, of connecting with other mamas who understand, who truly, truly understand what this journey is like. Because our friends and colleagues who don't have kids can't possibly understand. Or mama friends who have never done a PhD or don't know what a PhD journey is like can never understand. So connecting with other scholarly mamas who know what it's like to do a PhD, to juggle that with home life, real life, motherhood, all that can allow you to realize you're not alone. And that can help to reignite your passion because you can see that other people are finding creative and unique ways to navigate this journey and to do so successfully. And then the fifth thing that you could consider if you have fallen out of love with your PhD is to consider a pause or restructure. Contemplating a temporary break or restructuring your academic routine or schedule is not a sign of weakness. Let's just be really clear on that. Communicating openly with your supervisor about your feelings and exploring possibilities for how things can be tweaked or changed a little bit might offer you that space and time that you need to realign your priorities and also reignite your passion. And like I said at the beginning of this episode, I know that the best thing that happened for my PhD was having to take those breaks. It would have been impossible for me to sustain that, momentum and energy that I was putting into my PhD if I didn't have those breaks. So being a scholarly mama wasn't a hindrance to my success. Being a scholarly mama was an asset to my success. It allowed me to recenter my purpose. It allowed me to understand what I needed to change and restructure in order to make this work. But at its core, it really gave me the motivation to keep going. So to all of the scholarly mamas listening to this, in fact, let me be even more specific. To you listening to this episode as a scholarly mama, experiencing that disconnect from your research, remember that this phase is only one small part of a longer journey. And it's totally natural at some point on that long journey to fall out of love with your PhD. Your PhD journey, especially as a scholarly mama, is only one small part of a beautiful story. It's only one small part of a bigger picture, and one that embodies resilience and strength. Your dedication to both academia and motherhood is so commendable, mama. Embrace this phase as an opportunity for self-reflection and growth. And whether it's seeking mentorship or exploring new avenues or simply taking a breather, know that rekindling your passion for your PhD, if you've fallen out of love with it, is possible. Your journey as a scholarly mama is testament to your perseverance. So just embrace that, nurture it, and let your passion flourish once again. I hope you found this episode helpful, mama. Until next time, sending you lots of love and lots of gratitude. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you did and you want in on this movement, why not head over to mrsmummyphd.com. You can join the waitlist for our exclusive community of smart, purposeful, scholarly mamas. We'd love to see you on the inside. Remember, mama, these are our journeys of becoming.